I love that.
Great open. I love it
Yes.
too. Morse code of weather.
Yes, so Jacob Morse is here with another Morse code of weather. Jacob, you're teaching us about snowflake shapes today?
Yes, you've all heard that no two snowflakes are alike, right?
Yeah.
That's true, but we can go a little bit deeper than that. We'll take a deep dive into how snowflakes are made and how they even impact our forecasting of snowstorms like the one we had just this past weekend.
So many different kinds of flakes. Yeah.
Definitely, yep.
Yeah.
So we're talking about all the different types of snowflakes, shapes, and sizes that can form, and you can actually photograph some of these snowflakes. The first person to photograph them was Wilson Bentley back in 1885. He photographed over 5,000 snowflakes with that old technology back in the 1800s, and we can get much more precise measurements of these snowflakes and the shapes and sizes that they are nowadays with microscopes and all of those technologies that we have nowadays. But it all starts where these snowflakes are made, way 5 to 10,000 feet up in the atmosphere in what's called the dendritic growth zone. This layer of the atmosphere is that cloud layer where these snowflakes grow with ice crystals that are formed and then grow into those beautiful six-sided flakes that we see that fall down to the ground. So this layer of the atmosphere has to be between 3 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit for the most efficient production of snowflakes. It has to be a saturated layer of the atmosphere, and the air within that layer of the atmosphere has to be rising. The more rapidly that air is rising, the more snowflakes are going to be made, the better production of snowflakes that there are going to be. So there's about 30 different types of snowflakes that are classified, but we can break those down into 5 distinct groups. And all that matters is that layer of the atmosphere, that temperature, what's the temperature of that layer, 5 to 10,000 feet above our heads? That impacts which of these different types of snowflakes are made. So some of these are really tiny and don't add up all that well, but when the atmosphere is at a certain temperature, these snowflakes, called dendrites, those are the most pristine, the best fluffy snowflakes that can add up really quickly, and that would lead to higher snowfall totals in the area if these snowflakes, these dendrites, can be made the most effectively. That's between 3 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit in that layer of the atmosphere. If that layer is that Goldilocks temperature, these dendrites will form. But if it's even too warm or too cold, some of these other types of snowflakes will form, and those don't stack up that efficiently. So some of those photos that we can take of snowflakes, like I mentioned, this is at Penn State University, my alma mater. We have a Snowflake Selfies campaign, and these are some of these real-life photos of snowflakes that are taken. Even if you have a black jacket outside, you can get a really up-close photo of some of these snowflakes if you look really closely. And as I mentioned, with these different types of snowflakes, it impacts the amount of snow that falls, what we call the snow ratio, depending on that size of the snowflake. If it's a big fluffy dendrite or if it's a really tiny needle or plate, one of those doesn't add up more effectively than the other. So the snow ratios are typically 10 to 1 across the United States, 10 inches of snow for 1 inch of water. Here in North Dakota, where it's typically a little bit colder when it snows, we get 14 inches of snow typically for every 1 inch of water that falls, that liquid equivalent. And with this past storm that we had over the weekend, we had about a 16 to 1 snow ratio, meaning that with the 4.1 inches of snow that fell, that equated to 0.25 inches of water. So Jody and Kevin, kind of wrapping all of this up, we can see that really impacts how we forecast these storms. When you get a heavy band of snow that develops, you can get really high snow ratios because of that efficient production of those dendrites 5 to 10,000 feet above our heads.
The temperature is the key in the layers of the atmosphere. And in the studio, even when it's like 70 degrees, Jody is making her own snowflakes.
Look at that.
Okay.
Beautiful.
As you're over there giving that great lesson, she's making this piece of art.
Wanted to show you that I can make snowflakes too, and you can never make another snowflake like this.
That is pretty creative right there.
You got the snowflakes there.
Look at that.
And on my tie,
tie
too. There you
too.
go.
That is beautiful.
Snow everywhere.
Beautiful.
Yep.